Okay, so this is the latest part, which is part D. It may not be showing as part D, but that's what it is. This part D, and we are still continuing to diagnose Fleet Street in reporting the Supreme Court ruling of yesterday, Friday, 26th of February 2021. Earlier, I referred to the futility of the stooge, Sadiq Khan. Now, the contents of the ruling I have read now confirm what I was saying just before concluding the last part C. This is part D, even if it says part. Let's see what part it says. So it's part D, this one. And I have read the report, the ruling, and I've diagnostically read it. It's on 48 pages. Now, the point I was making earlier at the end of the last edition was that my knowledge and my active knowledge, my kind of intellectual knowledge, that is to say, reading, knowledge based on reading and studies, as well as my action. I have been actively advocating legal rights, mainly constitutional law rights, but not exclusively, for a very long time. And I don't think there is anyone else who has got similar experience or knowledge or insight. If anyone disputes this, they're welcome to direct message me by Twitter, the KhoodeelaarTV Twitter. I have met several, let's say I have had confrontations with several QCs and barristers and, of course, solicitors and their counterparts in other countries as well. And I don't see there is anyone among the licensed law traders anywhere, including in the UK, who would agree with me about what I have to say about the legal process. The legal process essentially is a disguise for carrying out the agenda that the state once carried out. And so therefore, the contents of the Supreme Court ruling against Shamima Begum's application is read out as a performance by the current president of the Supreme Court, called, within quotes, Lord Reed, R-E-E-D. The contents are bogus because in the ruling, they do refer to various articles of the ECHR, but the way they manipulate their way out of the obligations to allow Shamima Begum the rights that she is entitled to, but she was denied, are completely, transparently racist, prejudiced, biased, and illegal and unlawful. One of the things that now faces the people who agree with me about the fact that the Supreme Court was dishonest yesterday, they have to do one thing only, and that is to politically campaign for the establishment of those rights that Shamima Begum was denied yesterday. Because there is no other court in this country, in the United Kingdom, that the appeal can be taken to by Shamima Begum. And because of the hostility towards the European kind of international courts and tribunals, Shamima Begum is unlikely to be getting an early kind of platform anywhere to, quote, legally invalidate the illegal and dishonest ruling that was read out yesterday against her. Now, the only reason why there is a court system or the procedure system, I mean, the nearest example is of course, apart from the Nazi regime, the currently nearest kind of regime that is abusing the bureaucracy of the courts is, of course, India's Narendra Modi. Most of the cases, contentious cases that face Modi's regime are referred to or offloaded to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court in India has been used by the Brahmins and the BJP and the Shiv Senas as a kind of outriders for the regime, and they give the stamp of legality. That's what has happened yesterday in this country. And in previous diagnostic evidential updaters on the Supreme Court, the first president of the Supreme Court, I had pointed out the fact that he became professionally a prostitute for the purpose of the Brexiteers. Because the first president who claimed or who reportedly was a supporter of the UK remaining in the EU was very quickly converted. That is to say, he was prostituted to the cause of the Brexiteers shortly before he actually finished his term in post as the first president of the newly renamed, reconstituted, if you like, forum called the Supreme Court. Students of empire, students of imperialism over the last 1,000 years would be familiar with the role of the Supreme Court as it has been exposed yesterday. And students of Nazism and fascism will also be familiar. Because remember, one of the things that came up during the trial of the Nazis was that many of the criminals that committed any part of the genocidist attacks on the victims of the Nazis frequently peddled the excuse, I did that under orders, or I followed orders. It's like the courts. If the court, like this one, and the one before that, the one below the Court of Appeal that actually behaved in similar way in terms of producing the outcome against Shamima Begum, similar courts, tribunals set to give the stamp to the Nazis, murdering people, genociding, committing genocide, concentration camp, committing Holocaust, and all the other things. So the fact that there is a thing called the court, whatever it is called, Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court, is not really definitive proof that justice is being done through them. Think about that. It doesn't have to be this country. It can be any country, any jurisdiction. The same thing happened in many of these South American or Latin American countries, where courts sat and made rulings that were absolutely profoundly and brazenly and blatantly unjust and corrupt and acts of criminality in themselves. But if the courts and the highest court of the land is an instrument of state orchestrated criminality, then you cannot, the victim of that criminality or the victims of the criminality that goes on through that forum and the subsidiary forums under that main forum cannot take their pleas and their cries and their petitions and their applications for justice anywhere else. Not practical. Too many people are involved in the group that are violated by the criminality staged as the charade of the courts. So practically, the victims of denial of justice are victims of denial of fair access to the judicial process that should be actively delivering due process, which hasn't happened here. Any student of the judiciary or the jurisprudence need to read a lot in order to be able to follow many of the things that I'm saying. But generally, in order to make it easy for those who are not familiar, essentially judges are instruments of political system. And this is evident in the contents of what they say. For example, yesterday's ruling, just prepare for the shock if you are genuine. The yesterday's ruling, running into 48 pages, did not once have a reference to race, and therefore no reference to racism, no reference to racist, and most certainly no reference to empire, and absolutely no reference to Thomas Babington Macaulay. Now, Macaulay was the father of the racist English education that was foisted on the subcontinent during the 1830s, not the 1930s, 120 years before the British were forced to leave. So Macaulay said that the brown people, the people of the subcontinent, I mean, the whole section of the subcontinent is very, very black as Africans, the Dravidians, let's say. So the northern parts of India, of the subcontinent, are brown people. And there are other ethnological kind of ethnicity-linked reasons, which we can skip for the time being. So this ruling yesterday was a racist ruling against Shamima Begum. I'll tell you why. Quite apart from the fact that there is no reference to race or racism or racist. I mean, she has been attacked by a thing called the Immigration Control, whatever tribunal. She is not an immigrant. Just think about it. She is born here in Britain, in England. How did she become an immigrant? So the comments that have been published in the Times and other places today don't discuss that either. And the reason why they don't discuss that is because they can't even see it. So it's a dimensional problem as well. They lack many of the essential internationalist human rights dimensions and perspectives in their own reporting or journalism on the case. It was a racist court, even if, not that there was, but even if there were among the four so-called Supreme Court judges, a non-European or an African or Asian member. The proceedings were racist and the contents are racist. And Shamima Begum has been treated as a target of racists and as an alien, as an immigrant. Now, this is seriously illegal and seriously in breach of the Constitution and constitutional obligations of the UK. Nobody has said that. I'm saying it. We are saying it exclusively. And the funny thing, that is significant thing is, ironically, that one of Shamima Begum's kind of licensed law traders who appeared before the Supreme Court allegedly in her name is David Penick. Now, Penick charged £20,000 for one day, one official day of his advice to the Manchester City Football Club. And Penick is, of course, also known as one of the licensed law traders that represented Gina Miller in the anti-Brexit cases in the Supreme Court. And the Mail is having a go at the expense of Shamima Begum. Shamima Begum and Meghan Markle are the two women that are being assaulted by the Fleet Street. And they will continue to be assaulted, which is why we have been saying that what role Sadiq Khan has been playing has contributed to this. And I'll tell you why. Because Sadiq Khan, as a beneficiary, as a profiteer, personally profiteering from the post of elected mayor, is not going to support the campaign to scrap the elected mayor in Tower Hamlets, because that would put pressure on him to be accountable, and he is not likely to be accountable. So there is a desert, there is a wasteland, big wasteland that prevails in London, and in the case of Shamima Begum, it prevails in the Tower Hamlets Council. So what we said before is that when Shamima Begum and her two schoolmates were reported first time in February 2015, the person in place at the time was Luther Roman in the post of elected mayor. Now, I'm asking anyone viewing this, anyone who knows Tower Hamlets, either directly or from previous experience, to correct this if they think that anything I'm about to say is factually incorrect. Luther Rahman did not do anything about the safeguarding the children duty owed by Tower Hamlets Council. And when I say Ghulam Fuain, I don't refer to them as children or offspring of people who are traditionally members of the caste, Ghulam caste. I mean by Ghulam Fuain, mentally enslaved. Now, none of the Ghulam Fuains, that is, the mentally enslaved ones that have been allegedly editing and publishing and posting stuff during the period of, say, let's say February 2015 up to now. They don't want, and they cannot even understand. Many of them cannot even understand the duty. They can't understand, they don't understand that, and they won't want to explore, examine, investigate the duty of care significantly owed to children under the safeguarding the children duty. And there is no evidence of any of these so-called ethnicity-linked kind of publishers looking into the role of Lutfur Rahman. Because February, March, April, these are the 3 months during which he was also very busy, either preparing his excuses to be put to Richard Morey, QC so-called, or he was already involved in presenting his excuses. Whatever he was doing did not excuse Lutfur Rahman from making available and making public the facts of what he did to protect the children, like Shamima Begum. Because from 2010 until February 2015, he was very much in post as the elected mayor at the expense of Tower Hamlets. So what did Lutfur Rahman do? Did Lutfur Rahman do the necessary to protect children like Shamima Begum? We campaign for Shamima Begum's human rights, not in support of anything wrong she may have done. There are two things, completely two things. And we campaign based on this question and related questions. And we shall invite people watching this to express their support strictly on that clearly stated basis. We don't condone, we shall never condone any wrong done either by Shamima Begum or anybody else. But we condemn equally, fiercely, the denial of her human rights, her legal rights, under the pretexts that have been listed by the Supreme Court and by the other courts. This is the reason why politics and political campaigns become inevitable in a democratic context. Let's say that there is democracy in this country. And if the human rights are denied by the highest court, so-called, in the so-called land, then the victim of the denial must be given other alternative, lawful and legal options to defend their rights and their claims, which is what our campaign will provide. Now, if Shamima Begum is found to have done anything wrong, and if she has been found to have done anything wrong by an independent tribunal, then of course, accordingly, our opinion about her role would be expressed by denouncing her behavior. But that has not happened. And so we are asking for Shamima Begum to be given the due an equal treatment owed to a child and owed to a British-born child or British-born person, which hasn't happened so far. And I think that this is the distinction that should be made about her right to fair trial and any trial at all, any fair trial, that is. Now, the history of the likes of Sadiq Khan, who are licensed law traders, shows that the mental stooges never equal independent-minded campaigners for justice. Today's Daily Mirror, for example, this is very telling indeed. This is the Daily Mirror today, where but I'm focusing on the one at the bottom. One on the left, at the left on the bottom, which is racists who are waiting for this. And it's a small comment by Anila Baig. Now, this is a typical kind of racist stooge. Although she is saying that racist hostility to and against Shamima Begum makes her sick. That is what she's saying. But she is not with Shamima Begum. She is still with the racists. And I shall add to this another comment by another Asian young person, female born in the Merseyside area, the Shunetra Sarkar, who said that she is proud of her past, but she's proud of her past in a completely confused and ignorant way about racism. She says that she was kind of forced or influenced to feel ashamed to be of Asian origin. She is a Hindu origin person from India or Indian backgrounds. But she was apparently under influence of the racists to disown her own heritage, Indian heritage, Hindu heritage. And now she said that she is feeling much better about her past. But she is not really aware of racism. That's the proof of brainwashing. And this Anila Baig, who is also sounds like an Indian origin person, says that when she first heard of Shamima Begum's kind of departure for Syria, she hated Shamima Begum. Now, this is the same attitude that has been expressed by one of the women kind of commenters on the Sun online, whose name gives the game away. Her name is Anjali. Now, Anjali is more likely to be a Hindu name than a Muslim name. But this may be not a Anjali at all. This may be an operative from the anti-Muslim propaganda operations that are active in the UK and have been active very long time. And they have been similarly active in the USA, where many of the disguised anti-Muslim operatives claim to be Muslims, but supported Donald Trump's anti-Muslim diatribe and hate speeches and hate speeches every single day. So all of these people are making comments about racism and racist society and how they feel and as being at the receiving end of racism. And when you read their stuff, their opinion, you find that they are not even aware of what they are really victims of. They don't want to come across as being against racism, even now, even when they're trying to condemn racism. And this is the case with Anila Beg in the Daily Mirror today. And Anila Beg could be Sadiq Khan. Remember what he said about Muslims having chip on their shoulder. This program and myself, we do not belong to any particular ideological group of Islamists or whatever. We are referring to ordinary Muslim community as internationally objectively defined, doing the basic religious work of a faith. Whoever is a practicing Muslim is allowed to do that. But Muslims are being confused with acts of extremist criminality that Islam doesn't sanction or allow. And that's what is happening with the characterization of Shamima Begum as an extremist who deserves to be kept out of Britain for the safety of the public, which is what the Gujarati linked Priti Patel has said today. Now, if that is the case, that the Supreme Court is right to protect the Home Office's kind of line of opposing Shamima Begum's claim to be a British citizen, because the rejection or denial of that claim would save British public. If that is the case, if that is what it amounts to, then what about the many dangerous killers and murderers that are in prison today in Britain? One part, one form, one version of incarceration or jailing or prison could be applied to Shamima Begum. Why is she being treated as being more dangerous than the most dangerous ones already in Britain? Not terrorists, but dangerous nonetheless, on the records of their criminality and their threats to other people and society. The question that the commentators in Fleet Street have not asked, really, is the dishonesty of the Supreme Court, which has confused too many things together. Shamima Begum is not asking to be allowed to return to the UK for good. At this trial, at this stage, at this application, she is saying that her right to British citizenship is not open to question. And there is no evidence that they should be denied or taken away. But the Supreme Court ruling has given the language as if she has been found guilty of something else. That's not what she's appealing about. Remember what I'm saying. She's appealing about the taking away of her British citizenship, which she has by birth, by Sajid Javid, claiming that she is dangerous. But there is no evidence that she was dangerous, what she has done. Now that tale of her not feeling uncomfortable about sites of decapitation, that needs a separate examination. And before we go to that examination, which examination may not take place in this edition, but before we do that, whenever we do that, the question is, that is an expression of opinion. There are too many people all across the UK, all across England, who have daily habits of expressing cruel, unkind opinion. Shamima Begum's alleged lack of sympathy with the victims of the decapitation is not rare. Those two so-called Muslims, it's very doubtful whether they're Muslims at all, but those two murderers of the soldier in Woolwich have not been deported, and their citizenship, whatever it is, they have not been discussed. So David Panic, who appears for professional reasons to be a licensed law trader with respect and recognition of international values, is not included in that report by the Supreme Court dated yesterday as having insisted on race and racism being given the due kind of exposure, as having been influential in the decision to deny birthright to Shamima Begum. Apart from the reported expression of no sympathy for the victims of decapitation, Shamima Begum has not committed any crime that has been proven in a court of law anywhere. So for all these reasons, what we are saying is that these are two serious issues. We didn't introduce them, we didn't bring them about, but these affect other people, millions of other people, and they need to be properly, lawfully, legally clarified and established and confirmed. So apart from Lord Reed, so-called, I'm reading the word Lord within quotation marks. Reed, Hodge, Black, Lloyd Jones, and Sales. There are 5 of them altogether. And the hearing took place on 2 days, 23rd of November 2020 and the 24th of November 2020. And both days' sessions are available to watch on video. So the Supreme Court has violated the international agreements or international codes and requirements for allowing parties to a hearing or parties to any proceeding in the or through the courts. Fair access and fair say. Because by not allowing Shamima Begum to enter the UK to fully pursue her appeal against the Secretary of State's taking away our citizenship is a clear, simple, clear violation of the very seriously enshrined right to fair say and fair trial. She has not been tried by Britain or in any court in Britain. Remember what we're saying. So all of these are going to be central to the campaign that we have launched for Shamima Begum. And we shall continue to update this campaign in due course every time it is essential to update. And we said this final point in this edition about Shamima Begum. Those who are still supporting the retention of the corrupt post of mayor include many who want to see Lutfur Rahman seek election to that corrupt post again. Our campaign will necessarily ask questions about Tar Hamlets Council's role in safeguarding children during the 5 years prior to February 2015. So we leave that there just with those conditions. As we said earlier, not today, not in this edition, but previous edition, the Boris Graf is absolutely gleefully, kind of boastfully severing the fact that Alex Salmond, the former First Minister of Scotland and leader of the SNP, gave evidence against Nicola Sturgeon. So that's what they're doing. One footnote about David Pennick's charging £20,000 per day while he was hired by the Manchester City Football Club over an appeal to overturn a decision by a European sporting authority. £20,000 is a hell of a lot of money for even 1 month for an individual, professional if you like. And for Pennick to charge £20,000 is seriously questionable. But we want to know, and we shall be asking all the parties concerned and all the possible sources of information in the course of this campaign for the human rights of Shamima Begum, not in support of anything she has done or said about ISIS. So we shall do that for the whole community as well as this particular victim and also the 2 other children that are no longer, sadly, alive for their parents. These children we are treating as children, not condoning in any way, shape, or form whatever came into their heads. Absolutely not. And there is the other reason for the rest of society, for the rest of the community, there is the need for this campaign because this is not clear as to what wrong she has done, apart from the rumors, apart from the hate speeches. And this will be, by association, held against all other girls and boys and adults that share Shamima Begum's background, that they're Bangladeshis, they're Asians, they're Muslims, etc., etc. So for those people, we assert the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And we assert that presumption about Shamima Begum and her two friends, that they are entitled to British citizenship by birth, which is the case, even if they're not, even if they were kind of naturalized British citizens, we would do the same, assert their rights to the citizenship. Because no evidence has been shown by Sajid Khan or Priti Patel or by the government legal department or government appointed lawyers that Shamima Begum or her friends committed any crime. And the other thing, the other point which the Times writer today points out is that there are so many people, British people in Syria, expressing and having expressed all manners of sympathy or support for the so-called extremist Islamic State. And a state has the duty to protect citizens, not abandon them, expose them to a state of limbo, which is what most of these people have been exposed to by the UK, regardless of the particular application of the implication of Brexit. Now, this item about the Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon, this has been put online, this testimony by Alex Salmond, this has been put online by the Telegraph. That is the Boris Graph. And this is part and parcel of the kind of obscene celebration that Boris Graf is indulged in, because that shows that the SNP are fighting among themselves, and therefore their kind of attractiveness as the party to lead Scotland's independence referendum has been significantly harmed and damaged. Having said that, the various exchanges showed that the Scottish legal jurisdiction is not protecting the innocent. Let's put it this way. And regardless of what Nicola Sturgeon may say or what her supporters or her colleagues may say on her behalf, as against what Alex Salmond has said, they're both exposed as having failed the cause of Scottish independence. And the Telegraph is saying Scotland's leadership has failed, which is a very bold claim and which is obviously very strongly denied by the SNP and the leadership of the Scottish independence referendum movement. Whatever the actual final outcome makes no difference to the fact that even the Scottish independent judicial regime or jurisdiction is far, far, far less than perfect and is far, far, far less than fair. And we shall be talking far more about Shamima Begum and the campaign and the role and the duties and obligations betrayed by Tower Hamlets Council in the next editions.